Would you listen to your laziness, Steph? I feel like this is not you. I feel like you are somebody who, again, like you come in and correct me, as I'm sure you will. But I feel like you're somebody who objectively no one would call you lazy, and therefore I can't imagine you seeing yourself as lazy, certainly these days. Maybe in the past you have.
That's true. I don't think of myself as lazy now, but I did, which is why I don't think it's lazy.
Hmm.
That's it. Like the fact that I'm so not lazy now. Well, how could I have possibly been so lazy before? Was that lazy or was that something else? Because I don't believe we can change our personalities that much. Um, so I don't like the word lazy.
Can I give you the Wikipedia definition for it?
Sure.
Laziness is emotional disinclination to activity or exertion, despite having the ability to act or exert oneself.
Yeah,
Discuss.
the ability. It's that part. Like, what ability? You have the physical ability. I think that's what it
Hmm.
means. There's a portal of access on the outside, but
Hmm.
what's going on underneath it?
Are you starting this off with the premise of laziness doesn't exist?
I'm starting it off with the premise that many things we call lazy, I don't think exist. Does it ever exist? That's up for discussion. And I have some stories to share where I'm like, is there room for laziness? Like sometimes there might be. But I think by and large, the way I hear people talking about being lazy, and I think the way I used to think of myself as lazy, isn't that.
Hmm. Well, there was that book called Laziness Doesn't Exist. And the author of it, I forget his name, but he was on Caroline Dooner's podcast.
Mm.
And it was such a good episode. I've only ever listened to a couple of her episodes. I listened to that one and it was brilliant. And I used to recommend it to clients all the time. And now that episode has gone. So
Really?
not only is it about laziness does not exist, but the episode about laziness not existing does not exist anymore.
Do you know what? That is fascinating. I follow her. It is last night I went to unfollow her because I just don't. She does nothing for me anymore. In fact, she does bad for me. But I owe her my life. So I can't do it. Um, and I
Mhm.
won't. But look, I want to represent the fact that like I still believe in accountability. I still believe in, that like we don't need to just constantly cushion ourselves in everything single thing we do is okay and every single thing we do is without any like it's all I don't know how to describe it. It's not about trying to make yourself feel better. It's
Mhm.
about accuracy. And that's really where I come from everywhere. And I think that when people are talking about being lazy, I see it through a nervous system lens. And I guess part of the reason I see it that way is because I have experienced laziness that I understand was coming from resistance. And lazy is different than resist because resist is active,
Mhm.
and lazy is not. Lazy doesn't have any energy in it. And I also think resistance can be freezy. It can be the absence of access to energy, which isn't quite resistance, but I still think of it in the same way, where it's like a turning off of access. Not physically, obviously. We can all get up off a couch and do things if we are able. But I think that there's a representation of a no somewhere
Mhm.
else in a part.
Well, how I might think of it is I think of behavior. I often talk about it as the last link of the chain. So our behavior, I think of, so I think of it for myself anyway. My behavior is an outcome of what I'm believing, my emotions, my biology, which would cover your nervous system point, and environment. So those four things, beliefs, how we feel, biology, and environment, equal behavior. So if all those four things are in a relatively stable place, don't have to be an amazing place, I don't think we want to be inert. We don't want that inertia. Because even if someone would say to me, like, oh, I'm lazy and I love it, I would think, well, then that sounds like a choice. That to me sounds like
Mhm.
relaxing. Like you like that downtime and that space and that doing nothing,
Yeah.
which again, lazy implies that it is perfectly possible for you to do something. And it's this very simplistic view of humans and our motivations, our behaviors. You just can't be asked.
Yeah. It's funny because one of the only people that ever threw this theory into question for me was this very dear friend that I had all growing up. I've known him since first grade, and we ended up going to college together. And he just would be like that. Like he would just not be bothered to do but he didn't care. And I remember projecting this idea. I was like, you are so lazy. Like that's what I would think about him at the time when I too was criticizing myself for being lazy. So I do think I was projecting the judgment part, but I still to this day think about like, was Andy though lazy? like is he though? Like one of those. But this point, what you're speaking of helps me think about that because he also did not care. It's like there's also a difference between choosing not to be bothered and judging that. So I think that who talks about laziness except judgmentally, except maybe Andy. You know what I mean? It would be like, I'm lazy. And he would say it. He would be like, I'm just lazy. Like I was like, does he have some more going on under there than meets the eye? And that may be very well true, to be honest. But he chose it. It was what he wanted. He was not apologetic about it. And through that view, that's a choice, not like a defect necessarily, not this like, and do we think about laziness as a defect because it's a weakness rather than a choice?
Well, maybe that is laziness, and maybe we just need to reclaim the word a bit because you're right, it tends to only be used in a judgmental way. People generally don't aspire to be lazy, apart from your friend and the odd person. But in the definition, it's an emotional disinclination to activity or exertion, despite having the ability to act or exert oneself. That is different to inertia. I think I'm someone who has experienced a lot of inertia and then labeled that as I'm lazy and made it mean that I am wrong, not pushing myself hard enough, not disciplined, unwilling, all the negative attributes I have then piled
Mm.
on top of this inertia, which has only fed the inertia.
Exactly. That's the irony of it. It's funny because there are times when I will feel a little bit lazier. And when I feel that, I kind of get a little upset about it, probably because I remember being inert and I remember not being able to do anything about that. And so sometimes it's almost like the same way I feel about feeling low mood. I'll be like, oh, like, is this, I've been on the extreme side of this thing. Is it coming back for me? So there's some story I'm attaching to what has ended up being coming like just a passing thing. But I also think there's like a habit element because when I turned 30 something, 30, however old I was when I had my first daughter, like everything switched, right? This was the time where I had gone from being lower, slower, depressive to active, anxious, right? Like that's where it's just like the flip switched and just what brought me to the other side of the system. And then that became part of my habit, like where I would just get up and go and get up and go and get up and go and get up and go. It was easier to access discipline in this place. Again, as much to my credit as it wasn't before, because it's not, I don't believe it's part of like a character. It was part of what my state was able to afford me. So when I feel a little of the dip, it feels like, oh no, am I losing access to a state? But what happens is that because for now, oh my gosh, I guess it's been 15 years. I was going to say 10 since I was 30. Okay.
Bless you.
I just had a birthday, so really officially makes it 15. Um, the the habits that have been born of my more anxious behavior, which is more active, carry me. So I'm able to sort of get off the couch where I know that 15 years ago I wouldn't have. And it's not because of anything inside of me or my personality. It's because I've been doing it. So I have muscle memory to do it. So it takes less active primary energy to do it. And when you're in a lower energy place, you don't have enough energy to be like orienting towards the whole process. And if the process is already part of your built-in muscle memory, it's much easier to be like to just tap into it and be like, all I got to do is get in there and then it'll just take me the rest of the way. Whereas before it was so not part of the process that every step was active, and so I didn't have the luxury of the muscle memory. And I also think that's like almost like a privilege of anxiety in some ways.
So then in your mind, when you talk about that time when your energy was lower, you would have called yourself lazy. There was an inertia to be really reductive. Why do you think that was?
When I was younger,
Hmm
because I was in a freeze. Like I was I was depressed. I was completely overwhelmed. I was completely burnt out. I was completely in panic, but that had frozen. So I didn't feel understood by anyone, but I also didn't have any understanding for myself. So I was my own oppressor as well as, and
Hmm.
that kept me in like a fear state, which was like I couldn't move. I didn't have the energy to do.
Hmm. Yeah. I just think it's helpful for people to hear if people relate to being in it and they're trying to understand why they're experiencing this inertia. When you're in it, you don't know. So
Yeah.
it might sound like an obvious question. You looked almost annoyed by the question. You're like, why are you asking me that
Really? No,
for?
I wasn't
But I
annoyed.
think I think it's helpful for people to hear.
Okay. Well, it's like this. I remember in particular being in college like this and after as well. And I remember that my friends would be college students, like, let's go to class. Like, let's go, let's take a walk. Let's go to the reservoir. And I would be laying in my bed and they would be knocking on my door, trying to get me like, Stefanie, come on, because they kind of like knew that I wasn't going to go, and they would be like beckoning me, but the door would lock, and I would just stand on the other side of the door. And I remember having these moments where I'd be like, Stefanie, just go, like. And I had a therapist who used to say to me, like, she was just like, just think like the Nike symbol, just do it, just jump in the pool, kind of thing. And I remember being like, all I have to do is stand up, literally stand up, and put on my shoes and go. Once you're there, right? But the distance between my bed and the door sounds like nothing. Like it just sounds like a few feet,
Mhm.
but it wasn't. It was like, okay, well, embedded within all of that distance of 10 feet is confrontation of my body because coming out from under the covers meant I would have to expose myself or like put clothes on, even putting shoes on, bending over and feeling my body, the sensory experience of my body as I bent over, having some kind of like energy to wrap my head around the fact that I was going to now have to socialize, which was a presentation. There was a masking in that. It was energy, a lot of energy that it would take for me, not understanding when I would be able to get back, understanding the social anxiety that might exist in the interaction. And the fact that I would then come home and have to face my loneliness again, which I was already immersed in. So, like, it was like, I'd rather just stay here. All of this, plus more things, was within that. Like, so there was a lot of energy going into the decision to do
Mhm.
that and all that would come with that decision that's invisible. All of that was so overwhelming. And to be fair, that's also a lot of anxiety brain, which clearly was present in the depression even, that most people who don't struggle with this don't think about. Like they just act and they just are like, well, the path will clear for me as I move on it. Like it's not about all this. The more you predict and think about that, the more burdensome it becomes. But that's exactly what happens with people who have depression or anxiety. There's a lot of rumination going on. And so that rumination is presenting all of these problems that are going to be yours to carry. And knowing that in that one moment is like, that is too heavy. Therefore, these covers are too heavy on myself, and I cannot even stand under the weight of all of that. And that's what it was, right? And meanwhile, my parents would have been like, "You're so lazy, just stand up."
Mhm.
And this is what my friend used to say to me too, like, just put your shoes on. What is so hard about that? It's like you don't understand. I couldn't tell them either because I couldn't understand this then. I was like, I don't know what's so hard about it, but that's what was so hard about it. It was all the invisible load.
Hearing you talk about it like that sounds slightly more extreme than what I experienced. But that
Shocker.
moment of, and I've had it before, even in recent months, I'll get a moment where, let's say I'm trying to get myself out for a walk or something like that. And in that moment, it's like I can't see myself actually doing it, and then I can't do it. Does that make sense? Have you ever had that before?
Wait, no. But is this part of your aphantasia?
I don't know. It's more like I can't imagine. And I say see myself. I can't imagine actually doing it. It's a bit different to having a visual image of me doing
Oh,
it. Even like imagining I can still imagine an experience. So I don't think it's related to that. It will be at a time where I'm feeling heavy and tired. My energy is really low, and I'm thinking what I need is to get my energy moving. But I can't even imagine in that moment that it's possible to get my energy moving. I can't believe it.
yeah,
And then when I can't believe it in that moment, then I don't do it.
yeah.
And then later on, I look back and go, why didn't I do that? But I have had times where I have managed to drag myself out for a walk and it hasn't helped.
Mm.
Like I haven't felt better. It hasn't got my energy moving. And it's felt like lifting lead weights walking around. And I don't know whether, again, like the biological influences potentially of that, but I couldn't. I had a couple of months where, up until very recently, up until a few weeks ago, where I couldn't exercise because of my back. I couldn't even do yoga. In fact, very gentle stretching felt like the worst thing for my back. It kept aggravating it. And at that time, with my energy stagnating from not moving regularly, everything felt harder. And I've been so struck by the difference just in the last 2.5 weeks or however long it's been that I can move about properly again. I feel like a completely different person. And it scared me a little bit because I think, oh, and then going, I feel like I'm that dependent on
Movement.
having to move. Yeah, movement, which of course we know movement
Yeah,
can help with mood and energy and all of that. But it's frightening to think not having access
I
to
know.
it, that the result of that was as extreme as it
Yeah,
was.
I believe it. I believe it. And I think that's where we don't talk about it much, but the gratitude for being able to move, to not have, like, I have a friend in a wheelchair who can't move but one limb, of
Hmm.
her body, and the depression that she has been going through since that occurred. I can't, sometimes I think to myself, I couldn't do it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I could. Of course, no one does. But I think about that when I think about aging, and like, what will I do if one day I'm bound to my home or my chair? And where,
Lol.
like, yeah,
Yes, absolutely. It's really hammered it home, the imperative. And so I have just for the last 3.5 weeks, I'm still in that high gratitude state for it
mm,
and
yeah,
appreciating it so much. I'm sure at some point I'll take it for granted again.
yeah, yeah, right.
But at the moment, I'm just so grateful
Well,
to be able to.
let's go back then to a few weeks ago, because somebody listening to this would be like, yeah, now I feel worse because I can move and I'm not even great. I won't, or I don't. And more character assassination. So in the place before you had access to them, or was well, I guess you're saying it was more related to a physical inability, not necessarily an emotional one.
Yes, but and I don't think I'm alone in this, but I wasn't doing my physio exercises. There are other things that I could have done, but I didn't want to do. I don't get the same pleasure and enjoyment out of doing, so I didn't do them. So I would say that it wasn't just a physical barrier because there were things that I could do, and
Okay.
even I could do a 45-minute walk, but I was struggling to get myself
To
to
do
do
it.
that.
That reminds me of what we talk about in terms of like why we tend to be black and white, or why on a bad body image day are we inclined to actually eat more, right? Like there's this strange phenomenon that happens in our brains when we perceive a barrier that then we like, let me just push that envelope even farther. Let me really go really deeply into the can't. And that probably, I mean, I don't know, does that come? I know for me, it comes a little bit from the story that I'm telling myself about the fact that I can't. So if I feel like I don't have access to something that I want or need, I might feel like the doom is coming. I really get nervous and scared about that. And that then lends itself to turning on that black and white thinking to be like, well, I might as well really go there, like really, because then I don't, feels almost more purposeful, or it feels more valid to completely become that thing.
Yeah, well, I was 2 months into the 3 months that I was out. A friend, when we were voice noting about it, she said, "Oh, back issues are the worst because when you're in it, you feel like, oh, this is it forever." And when she said those words, I thought, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this might not be it forever.
Yeah.
I've envisaged the next few years like that's it now. Like my
Right.
movement days are over.
Right. Yes.
My body's going downhill. There's only one direction. And I realized that that hadn't even been at the forefront of my mind, but that belief was active in the background that this wasn't going to get any better.
Right. So you might as well.
Well, there was a sense of despair that came with
Yeah.
that, and very hard to motivate
Right.
yourself from a place of despair.
Exactly. So there is some strength. I think that's the same with emotions. When I'm in an emotion, I always feel like it's never going to go away. Not that I think that up here. I think it back here. It's just there. Like this is never going to go away. So I might as well
Yeah.
stay here.
I think it comes down to as well with whatever you're believing in the moment, the behavior tends to make sense. So I
Yeah.
think with this idea of lazy, when you're struggling to get yourself to do something, afterwards you think, oh, I should have done that thing earlier. It was so easy. Why didn't I do it?
Yeah.
But in the moment, it may not have been active thoughts in the front of your brain, a bit like the belief I was carrying that my back wasn't ever going to get any better. But I think there's often something going on in the background
Mm-hmm.
at the belief level
Yes.
um, that is getting in the way. But then when
Yes.
we're believing something different, we can't get in touch with that unless we can get in touch with it when we're in it a bit more, you know?
Yeah. You bring up a good distinction between beliefs and thoughts.
Hmm.
So where we have beliefs that contradict our conscious thoughts, right? Like, or the conscious thought might be, but I want to go for a walk.
Yeah.
But the belief is that I'm not a person who goes for walks, or exercise won't help me anyway,
Hmm.
or
Or it's not
exercise is for
enough.
weight loss or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like those beliefs are often not in our thoughts. So we're
Mhm.
not aware of how much they're actually playing a part because consciously we're not registering it.
Yes. Yes.
I also think about my kids sometimes because I admittedly, so and all three of them, I will say, have moments where right now it's summer break. My youngest is in camp, my older two are home. They go to camp intermittently, but this week they're home and they will sit there and I'm working still from home and I will come out of my office and there will be dishes and garbage and like all their stuff like everywhere. And I get frustrated because I'm like, I'm working and usually you're at school and the house is fine. But now I'm coming out and I'm like, okay, so now during this 1 hour break I have in my entire day, I have to clean up. And then I'm like, no, you guys, so I'm like, guys, I need you guys to put your breakfast dishes away. I need you to rinse them and put them in the dishwasher. And I also need you to clean up all the stuff all over the counter. And they'll just be sitting there like, later. And in my mind, I'm like, you're lazy. Like, and there's a part of me that gives room for like, I remember what it was like to be a kid and also to be asked to do something when you're in the middle of something else. And I understand the later sentiment, but it happens often enough that there's times where the thought is, you're just being lazy right now. And as I'm speaking this is where I've always questioned it. I've always been like, is there a lazy thing? Like, is there actually? Because it looks like laziness to me. But I guess from this distance, it's like maybe there's a belief that I'll do it. Mom will do it. Or that I shouldn't have to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you're kids, it's kind of like, is this really my job? You know what I mean? Is that one of their beliefs in the back of their head that I've potentially created for them? Like, or is it more I'm prioritizing something different?
Mhm.
This isn't a value to me. So, and in which case all of those things talk us away from the idea of this being a laziness issue. However, I'm trying to create space for could there be? Is there something? But no, I really feel like there's something about the state one is in.
Mhm.
It just feels like almost it's the same way that you keep scrolling and you don't mean to. Like there's something about getting sucked into energy patterns. And
Mhm.
I believe in that very much. So when we're in more of a slower energy pattern, it's harder to get the momentum to move against it, which is just energy theory. It's not character theory.
Well, just with the kids, one is there could be a belief that they will do it later. There's no need for them to do it now when they're so engaged with the thing they're doing now. And then later them doesn't, I'm assuming, a lot of the time. But also, I was thinking about this earlier and this nicely loops around, but the idea of laziness or the experience of laziness as an act of rebellion,
Mm,
of a way of going, I
yes.
don't want to do that. I feel this pressure to do that, and I'm resisting that.
Yeah.
Is that laziness? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, right. Because on from my mother perspective, I'm like, well, then yeah, your rebellion is lazy because what are you rebelling against? This is just like pitch in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is not like I'm pressuring you, like or I'm not oppressing you to ask you to clean it. You know what I mean? It feels like a plausible
Yeah.
ask.
You are pressuring though. It's
Fine, but
it's
like,
reasonable, but
but it's
it will it be
reasonable.
experienced? I'm
It's
not saying it's not,
no,
Stephanie.
it's I'm just getting heated in the way I talk. I'm not mad. Um, but like it, that's what it is. It's like, is it unreasonable? And I think that rebellion, we feel like rebellion is justified when when it's an unreasonable pressure. But I'm
Hmm.
like, well, what if it's a reasonable pressure and we're rebelling? Does that
Yeah.
then what? You know what I mean? Like then
How do
why are we
how do
rebelling then?
how do we define reasonable? Who
Yeah, this
sets
is
the
true.
the
This is
goalpost
true.
for reasonable?
That's
But
true.
if we were to take back to the Wikipedia definition of laziness, when it says laziness is an emotional disinclination to activity or exertion despite having the ability to act or exert oneself, then that does apply to the kids in the situation. Like there is an emotional disinclination, but that could also apply. at the nervous system level as well.
Right. I guess it's the connotation of the word because I guess maybe, yeah, that would be lazy, but it also, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense though. You know,
Hmm.
and I guess we have trouble, and maybe we could move to a part of the conversation where it's like, well, what do we do if we have a part of us with a belief that runs up against another part of us that has a desire for a different thing, that has a different belief or a different desire to believe something different? And that's, I think, where we are getting probably stuck a lot, where we have two conflicting parts, and the part that has the rebellion or whatever is in charge or has
Hmm.
more microphone.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, this would be the whole DBT approach, the idea that there's a wise mind that can step back and look at the two parts and go, okay, this part of me feels this, has this pressure, this part of me, this. Okay, what is actually possible? That's going to vary depend on how active the parts are, how triggered the nervous system is around this as well. I think these are the times when actually it sounds really, I don't know, basic 101, but sometimes talking it through with another person can be really helpful. I've done that so many times when I've been stuck with
yeah,
something, getting myself to do something. I talk it through with somebody and, but start to unstick a bit. I make a bit of sense of what's going on. I sort of shift my state and the way I feel about it, and then I'm able to do it. So using
totally.
one
Yeah.
another for co-regulation.
Yeah. And even just organizing your thoughts around it so you can see what's happening.
Hmm. But when the self-judgment is there, that's going to block that. And this is, I think,
Yeah.
the piece here is to try to even recognize the self-judgment, but how do we
Yeah.
put that
Some,
down, which isn't the same, like you said, I just want to add, it
yeah.
isn't the same as going, oh, everything's okay, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Um, because sometimes it does matter.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on the motivation because I'm thinking about the places where I can be, where I've thought about myself being lazy. And if it's something that I can see as a rebellion, like a reasonable rebellion, I'm not judging myself for that. Then I'm like, yeah, yeah, that
Hmm.
is my no. But if it's not, if it's something that feels like I'm not rebelling against something, I just don't want to. Or I don't know, because even if I can say I'm scared to, that I can also understand. But if it's
Hmm.
something like, I don't know, I guess more mundane, like why am I not doing the dish? Why am I not doing the laundry? Because I'll do the dishes. I actually like doing the dishes, but I don't like doing laundry. And then I'm
I
like,
don't understand that because laundry, all you're doing is you're moving something from one thing to another.
no, it is terrible. I will fold towels and sheets because
Hmm.
they are of a shape that accommodates folding nicely. It's very step one, step two, step three. But when you've got clothes, and then there's like so many clothes within clothes, and the pile just never seems to end, and then you have to put it away.
Yeah, you're talking about a household of five here, and I'm just talking about one,
Yeah, I
one,
can
one
handle.
washer
Well,
week.
that matters. It's like
Really.
the overwhelm because I would do it for myself,
Yeah, yeah,
but when I'm thinking about how much is actually involved in doing it for everybody else and all the steps, that's where my laziness will kick in because it's just really overwhelm. And I do
yes.
think that's related. Like the overwhelm of something will make us lazy.
Even just the overwhelm of thinking about all the things you need to do, even if you're doing none of the things you're thinking about
Yeah,
that you need to do.
right. And then you're like, how am I? I don't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, but you're thinking about all of those things and you're completely overwhelming your brain with it.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
so you're
And
just your brain's like, never mind, I'm not going there. That
yeah.
sounds awful.
Yeah. It's like also that when you get to a point where you feel like you can't get everything done, and the brain's like, well, if we can't get everything done,
Yeah.
might as well do
Why
nothing.
bother?
Yeah.
There's no reward.
Right. Yeah. But that's an interesting thing as well, because I think this has come up in like ADHD coaching spaces about the dopamine boost we get from things like tidying up. Something about, I don't know if it's like a task completion thing
Hmm.
or a clear space, something, an
Yeah,
environment thing, all of that together. But one of the things that will lift my mood more than anything is just going and just clearing everything, just tidying everything up. Always changes, shifts something in me.
definitely. Same.
Samesies.
Samesies. What do you do if there's a task that you're trying to get done or repeatedly trying to get done that continually runs up against your own laziness? Like, how do you broach it? Let's say you're like, okay, I've talked to somebody about it and
Hmm.
I have an awareness that it's overwhelm. Now
Yes.
what?
Anecdotally speaking, there's two things I do to try and mobilize myself in that down energy state. One is asking myself what actually feels possible right now. So if I've got a whole load of things on my to-do list, or there's a load of housework or something that needs doing, I will go, okay, there's a lot to do. What feels possible right now? What small thing? Because for me, sometimes it's about getting something going that can lead to more. So that's one thing that can help personally sometimes. The other one is tends to be more with like bigger one-off tasks, is saying to myself, how can I make this easier? And it might be something that seems like in and of itself should be quite easy, but just asking myself how to make it easier. Have you ever seen like sometimes you see, well, of course you have, sometimes you see like a clickbait article where you're like, oh, like I've got to see what the answer to that is. And it was basically about using body doubling as like an ADHD management thing. And I was like, oh, what's body doubling? And so I watched, I think it was on YouTube actually, I watched it with some ADHD professor dude. Basically, it's you and somebody else agreeing you're both going to do something at the same time. So it
Yeah.
sounds like they give these things a
It's like
name.
co-working spaces.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that as well.
Yeah.
Because the problem I've got into before when I believe I'm lazy is I think that the answer lies in just trying harder, and that doesn't work. So again, I've used this example loads before, but it was just really helpful because it was one of the worst things I procrastinated over was doing my accounts and taxes every month before everything was digitalized. And so how do I make that easier? I take myself off for a lovely breakfast and I sit there drinking nice coffee and I have my laptop and I'm out of the house and that's how I get something done. If I keep saying to myself, oh, I should just be able to sit down for 45 minutes and get this done, well, I wasn't doing it. That was the reality of
Hmm.
that.
Wait, so you mean in this case, the body doubling is like the other people around you at a cafe, at a restaurant or something?
Oh, my brain had jumped on from body doubling.
Okay, I
Sorry. I
thought, I was like,
I
am I
I
missing something?
prattled through that. No, I
Okay.
prattled through that onto that, but body doubling was another supposed technique. It's like if you and your friend are both struggling with, I don't know,
Yeah, no,
tidying
I
up, you
understand. I
go,
just thought was
roll it up.
connecting it to the restaurant, and I was thinking you
No.
were body doubling with other people, like who are also potentially doing things.
So I've got a friend who uses FocusMate. Do you have FocusMate? Do you know
I don't
FocusMate?
know it.
So I've never used it, but the idea is when you've got some kind of task at your computer, is you log on and you do, it's like a co-working session. I
Yeah.
assume with a random stranger that
Oh.
you sort of say what you're doing, and I don't 100% know how it works, but she uses it all the time. She's always going to me, why don't you should use FocusMate? You should use FocusMate. But in my mind, I'm thinking if I've already got to the point where I'm like, right, I'm ready to sit down and do it, I'm okay focusing. That's the part, is the
Yeah.
sitting down and doing it.
Yeah.
And the focus, mate, it's not like you commit to something in advance.
You
It's
have to do it
something you
right then and
decide to
there.
do in the moment. Well, if I was willing to do focus, mate, I'd be
Yeah.
willing to just
Yeah.
do the task as it
Well, that might
stands.
not be true for everybody. There might be people who like if
Sure,
they
yeah.
have the idea of like a focus mate coming, then you're like, all right, well then I can sit down. I think I would.
Mm.
Um, I also think for me, like I give myself permission to orient towards it. So if there's something that feels overwhelming, which is going to be my cue to laziness, I think most of the time, I'm like, okay, well then I also break things down. I mean, this is very typical advice, right? Like you break things down to very small chunks. So sometimes when I get like a shipment of clothes, like right now, I'm going to Italy in a few weeks and I have all these orders coming to my house of like things I need. Like I need to cover up for swimming. And whenever I get clothes delivered to me, I'm like, oh, and then I just leave the boxes. Sometimes left the boxes there for like a month or more. And then I can't even return it anymore. That's
Mm.
how much. But that to me, I'm like, that's a resistance. That's not laziness. But what I ended up doing with that as a strategy is I'm like, okay, when I get the packages, all I have to do is put them on the dining room table. And then the next day I bring them up to my room. That's it. And then the next day I open them. And then the next day I take it out. Like I have literally done that with clothing because it's been that much of an issue for me before to try stuff on and to confront all of that. So if I just give myself a little bit of the task at a time, I can do that. I can do a part of something, but the other thing is that I give myself permission to be like, okay, just go into the thing and look around. So for example, I'm redoing my website. I've been redoing my website for a year. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how overwhelming this is. But the other day, I was like, okay, I'm actually going to clear space in my calendar, which I had done months ago, and it landed on last Friday. And I still got to Friday and I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to. I have no motivation to do it. This isn't even overwhelm. It doesn't feel like it just feels like I don't want to. And then I was like, okay, then just open your laptop and look at it. That's all. Just do that. If you get that done today, that's good enough. Just look at what you're dealing with. And then I did. I opened my laptop and I still didn't want to. I could feel the resistance. So I was like, okay. And I opened it and I just clicked the click and I was like, okay, yeah, home page. Okay. About page. Okay. Yep. Okay. I see. And then as soon as I hit like the like one-to-one coaching page, I was like, oh no, no, this is the wrong thing. And I edit the copy and I'm like, oh no, that's not in the right place. I need to change that picture. And then once I got into it, I actually wanted to keep going. But if I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't, it would still have been fine. But there's something about orienting to what we're doing. And I used to give people the assignment of like with exercise when people had resistance about that, like just put your shoes on and drive or like look at where it is that you're going, like make the loop in your car and then go home and that's it, call it a day. But just to orient towards the thing, because sometimes that's part of the overwhelm.
Exactly. I think I've done it before with the whole do as much as you can do in 5 minutes kind of thing. And almost inevitably, I do more. Sometimes that hasn't worked because I've been like, well, I know that you're expecting to do more. So
Yeah.
there's something about the true permission
Yeah.
to do the 5 minutes, which can be challenging when that's not normally the experience when you start. Ultimately, I think if someone's listening to this and they're struggling with this, like feeling like they're lazy and not doing the things that they want to be doing, I think the worst thing you can do is to just dismiss it as laziness. It's like when you're struggling with your food to just dismiss it as a lack of discipline. It won't get you anywhere. If anything, it will just keep you more and more stuck because the solution is to just try not to be lazy, or the solution is to just try to be more disciplined, but not looking at all at the reasons, some of which we've described now. What we've said overwhelm, we've said rebellion,
Fear.
fear, freeze, for all manner of reasons. Anything else?
Black and white thinking.
Yeah. Any kind of beliefs that might be holding you back as well. Because if we go back through the chain, what's going on in your environment, your biology, your emotions, and your beliefs, to try to unpick these a bit to see where the sticking point is. Something is getting stuck with that energy flowing through into action and going back up the chain rather than just saying, I should just become more action oriented. The end. Unless you've got anything to add.
Mm-mm. I think we covered it. I think that that lost episode out there in the internet abyss has been replaced. Filled the gap.
We have. Now I can send clients to this.
Exactly.
Which is much better. He talked a lot about, actually, in the episode, I remember the guest, I can't remember his name, he spoke a lot about the whole Protestant influence of productivity and where a lot of it had its roots, religious roots.
That's why. Bingo. Knew it.
Bingo bango. All right then.
Okay.
Okay. Good talk.
Good chat as always.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye.